Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to the very first episode of the OnePlus Community Widers Club's podcast, Loop. On this podcast, we're going to be covering everything tech related, whether it's OnePlus stuff or it's not. On this episode of Loop, we're going to be going over everything that has happened in the tech universe over the past month, or as the tech community likes to call it, Techtober. So right off the bat, let me introduce everyone that's on the podcast today. I'm Yashovardhan Nagori, also known as Yasho Nagori on the forums, and I'm going to be your host for the night. We also have Suhant from India, who's here with us.
Hey everyone, I'm known as Suhant M on the forums.
We have Mickey Wang from Canada.
Hi, I'm Black Forest Ham on the forums.
And finally, we have Randy Bryan from the US.
Hey everybody, I'm Texas Aggie One on the forums.
All right, so that's everyone who's going to be on the podcast tonight. And I think let's just jump right into it. So first of all, guys, I'm going to begin this podcast by talking about the OnePlus 8T launch event. For me personally, I think the launch was a bit underwhelming because not a lot of exciting stuff was announced. I was excited about the watch, but even that just ended as an announcement for, it might be coming. So yeah, that was it for me. So what do you guys think and what are your thoughts on the entire launch event? Suhant, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So as always, like I'm not going to be upgrading my current phone. I have the 7 Pro at the moment, so it doesn't make too much sense for me to upgrade. So like for that reason, I'm not too interested in the phones unless I do have a need to upgrade or a desire to upgrade. So my focus this time was more on the accessory side of things. The Buds Z do seem very interesting. I just reviewed the Buds on the forums, so coming from that, the Buds Z do seem like they have improved on things like sound isolation with the silicon tips, and also very good battery life. I'm waiting to see if they're actually as good as they look on paper. And very very excited for also on the phone side of things for the warp charge as well.
So yeah, I have a quick question for you. So have you used a Bullets Wireless Z?
Yes, I that used to be my daily before the Buds.
So did you feel any inadequacy of base on those? Because I think it was decent enough already and they've introduced a base version, right?
Yeah, I that was very peculiar, to be honest, because I literally remember like the one line that even OnePlus used on their social media, these pack a punch, and they do. So I really don't know why they released the base edition. I want to see what the difference is, because I think that for the Indian, it is an India exclusive product. So I think people in the market are just focused on just the low ends instead of overall sound quality. So it might just be to please the market.
Yeah, I think that's the case. They just wanted to update, and I think so that was a move. So Mickey and Randy, like what were your impressions, considering the 8T only has one variant launched in the North American region, right?
In my opinion, that's not so much different from the past. I mean, the 8 Pro, the glacial green version was only available in 8 and 128, and the blue was only available in 12 and 256. So I think them limiting the SKUs for phones here it's not too strange, and it's not something to be outraged about. But, this launch, I think it really was more about bridging over to Warp Charge 65 and, well, potentially new accessories that, that were leaked but weren't really at the launch.
Yeah, that's correct. And, I'm curious, like, how often do you see a person just walking by? How often do you see a OnePlus device on the street?
Actually, recently, I think I've seen them a bit more with the new color schemes. Before, if you had like a gray or black OnePlus 6 or OnePlus 5, you can't really tell them apart from the other phones people are holding. But, now with the green and blue and, well, with an even brighter green-blue for the OnePlus 8T, I think it'll be much more of a obvious brand image.
Yeah, that's correct. And Randy, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How do you see 8T fitting into, the $750, if I'm correct, $750 price segment, considering there's the Samsung S20 FE Fan Edition that just recently launched, and also the iPhone 12 obviously, and iPhone 12 mini. So those were interesting launches. And how do you see 8T fitting between those devices?
That's a really good question, because there has been among some of my friends who are also OnePlus fans, there's been some discussion about the price point and, should it have been more? Should it have been less? Is this a really good mid-range phone, or is this kind of a low-end, high-range phone, if you know what I mean by that?
Totally.
I think ultimately at the end of the day, like historically, OnePlus has been known for having good value and really good specs, a phone that doesn't lag, and a phone that charges fast. And so the 8T specifically, I think, lines up with a lot of those, especially with the new 65-watt charger, which I am so freaking excited about that. I love fast charging, and I can't wait to get my hands on one of those and to get my hands on the 8T so I can try that out. But I think that most people aren't going to agonize over the price like all of us fans do. Most people are going to say, wow, that's a pretty sweet phone, and it's only $750. That's a great price. Boom, I'll get it. I think most people aren't going to agonize over it like we do.
I think that's something really interesting that you said, that the fans are agonizing over the price, but in reality, it's a really good product, right? It's a really good phone. I mean, for anyone, I think it's going to serve every purpose very well. I'm currently using the 8 Pro, the OnePlus 8 Pro, and it's a great device, honestly. I think I couldn't ask for anything more right now. So obviously, I'm not going to be upgrading, but that's a great point that you've put up. Anyone outside of the OnePlus community, or who's someone who's not into the OnePlus ecosystem per se, I think they're going to love the device.
Yeah, and I've been talking with some people this week since the launch about the Android 11 and how it's more of a skin instead of like stock Android, and how they're trying to make it where it's one-handed, and showing that to people. And talking about that with people, I think there's a lot of excitement about that they think that's a really cool thing. That you can use one hand to get to most of your settings and things like that. We just have to let the UI catch up at this point.
That's a great point. I was just coming to that, the new face of Oxygen OS, which is quite similar to actually Samsung's very own skin. That's the One UI, if I'm not wrong. And I've used One UI before, and I'm not gonna lie, I think I loved it because the idea of using the phone with one hand definitely suits with the bigger devices that have been coming out. And people have only been hating on it on the OnePlus forums because it's like sort of copied from Samsung, but not really. I won't call it outright copying, because there's a lot of things, still OnePlus specific that are going on in the device. And yeah, I'm curious to know, Suhant, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so in terms of the optimizations done for one-handedness, so like the top third of the screen being more of a title space and space for images and stuff that doesn't need to be interactive, I think that's a good move. The lower 2/3 are a lot easier to reach, for example, for your thumb.
Have you used it till now? Have you got the chance?
So my brother has the 8 Pro, so I've seen it on that. I think people on the forums are more a little bit more agitated and angry about the amount of bugs that came even in a stable version. I'm sure it's ironed out in the 8T, and will get ironed out over a period of time for other devices as well. But I think that's where most of the anger comes from, I would say. Because it does seem like, everyone's resistant to change in the beginning. So I think it's just going to be a matter of time when everyone realizes that it's actually, it is improving efficiency on their devices, how they use it. So, yeah.
Yeah, you just perfectly put it out. And, Mickey, coming on to you next. So you're a design student, right? For the audience who don't know you.
Yeah, I'm currently studying industrial design in my final year.
So from a design perspective, how do you look at Android 11 and Oxygen OS, blending it with the one-handed and everything that's new, apparently. So how do you put it into perspective, from a design point of view?
Well, I think the visual departure from stock Android is something I very much welcome. Stock Android's sort of gotten old at this point, and Oxygen OS puts a fresh new twist on it. For the ergonomic considerations with moving stuff to the bottom 2/3 of the screen, I guess what I have to say about that is it looks weird, but works well. And ultimately, that's just to benefit the user.
The last line that you put, like, yeah, that's a really good point. I think sometimes usability over aesthetics is more important, and we might be on the path to achieve that here. So definitely very excited about that. And anything else anyone's excited to share about the launch event? Any particular perspectives or views you'd want to share? Please go ahead.
I had one thing to share about the Android 11. So I would say, first off, kudos to OnePlus for making a move like that, because that is kind of bold, and that takes a lot of guts to do that. And then on the other hand, I'm more of a stock Android fan, so I did struggle with it a little bit at first, but I've basically just gotten used to it now, and because I'm using it on my 8 Pro, and I actually really like it. So I did have a little pushback at first, but I really like it. And overall, for the launch, seemed like they talked a lot, and I think they might have lost people with having so much communication. I think it would be best to be pared down a little bit, maybe throw in some more stories to keep people's attention. But, that's just my 2 cents on it. Overall, I was very happy with the new product.
Yeah, speaking only about the launch event, I think the launch event could have been done better, especially looking at, Apple's launch event that took place just a day before. And everyone, develops a sense of higher expectations with OnePlus. And I don't think those were met in terms of just, presenting the devices. Otherwise, I think it was decent. Mickey, you were saying something?
Yeah, I think the most important part of this event, I mean, sure, the phone is great, but I think the more important part is finally the introduction of a super fast charging solution, a 65-watt charger. And the fact that you can use it with other USB-C power delivery devices, that's what's really piqued my interest. So recently I got a laptop that could be charged over USB-C, and I might buy this charger even though my phone doesn't support the 65-watt warp charging, because I mean, just the aspect of being able to carry one charger around for everything, that's groundbreaking.
It really is.
Definitely.
As MKBHD says, USB-C everything, please.
Yeah, exactly. There should be standardization, but certain brands just, don't seem to take the budge. So I'll speak, I just spoke about the Apple event, and first of all, I'm just going to say that Apple's marketing, is like top level. There's no doubt about that. The way they present the phones and everything else that launched. I mean, they didn't really launch anything new per se. If you look at an overall perspective, I think the iPhone 12 is very oddly similar to the iPhone 11, except the Fire's design cues that they've taken and everything. But I think it was like pretty much the same device, but still they presented it in such a manner that is just completely a new device and everything's going to be revolutionary in their words. But what were you guys' thoughts on the Apple event, and how do you see the iPhone 12 as a device and competing with all the competition that's out there in the industry right now? Swant, would you want to go first?
So first of all, kudos to Apple for always nailing just the production of their launches. I don't think any company does it better or even comes close to it's just launches. Apple launches are always a joy to watch, and always a launch that anyone in the who's even the slightest bit interested in tech would watch. So kudos on that first. And to get to the point of the iPhones, it was a little bit underwhelming for me as well, because we were expecting more. I don't know, the iPhones don't seem like a massive upgrade other than the processors and the cameras again. They haven't done anything revolutionary. I think the most surprising thing they've done is bring MagSafe in. And I was looking on Twitter, someone tweeted this saying that MagSafe is now, just by the addition of a $5 magnet on the back of an iPhone, they've created $1 billion accessories market, and I think that's genius.
I was just gonna mention that.
Yeah, so MagSafe has a crazy opportunity to become something way more than just magnets. I mean, just think of all the possibilities of things you could attach on the back of your phone. It could even, in the future, go on to be something that's a more current version of mods on phones, like Motorola and other companies did in the past.
Yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind, and
sorry, how could I forget the no chargers in the box? That's a
yeah.
big deal. I think I'll let Mickey and Randy speak more about this as well, but I think it has its pros and cons. I'm not sure how I feel about it quite yet, but it is a very bold move from Apple, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna turn into something where the industry mocks them for now, like OnePlus and Samsung and like all these other tech companies have done so far. But maybe a year or two down the line, everyone will end up taking out their chargers out of the box. So yeah, let's see how that goes.
So, funny you bring that up because I was saving that, for towards the end of this topic. But since
sorry.
it's already, that's no problem. I think we'll just, address it right away. So I'll give my 2 cents on it and I'll ask Mickey and Randy to, give in their thoughts as well. In my honest opinion, I think this is just another move by Apple to make more money, but they obviously are going to portray it as a way to, save the environment. I mean, yeah, I understand the carbon footprint situation that we're facing, and I think it's important to find ways to reduce our carbon emission in certain ways. But anyone getting a new device, I think would need a new charger, because especially with Apple chargers, I think they wear out in like an year or so. I've had this issue like with my iPad and everything. I think even the adapter didn't work for more than 2 years. So if someone's getting a new device, I think they would want a new adapter. And even if Apple is not including them, they've not really, given the discounts to the people buying them. And that's certainly something to keep in mind, because ultimately, I think they should have reduced the price by a little bit, or at least indicated something that could point towards them actually caring about the environment. But yeah, that's what's happened. And
now the cables and the bricks are $200 instead of $500. That was a joke.
Yeah. So, Randy, what do you think about the whole event, and obviously the no charger included in the box thing?
So I'll say right off the bat, I use a Mac as my main laptop, but these events I used to watch them all the time, and I don't even watch them as much anymore. I just watch a little bit and then I just get turned off. So I'm I think they're great production and all of that. But when they roll out something that I've had on Android for like 3 years, it really is annoying. So then the whole thing about not having a charger in the box, I started thinking about it, and we have a couple of family members that have iPhones, and we might have 1 or 2 extra chargers laying around, but it seems like we're always short of chargers. So I think if they don't put one in there, they ought to at least give like a certificate to let somebody get one for free. So like maybe if you don't want one, then you just say no and maybe get a certificate to get one for free or something. I don't know. Hopefully OnePlus will keep putting chargers in their boxes, because the charging technology on the OnePlus changes, from year to year. It gets better. And I wouldn't want to like use some old charger on the new 8T, because I want to get the new charger so I can take advantage of the fast charging. But I don't think fast charging is a very big deal to Apple right now, because they don't seem to be putting a very huge emphasis on it. So overall, underwhelmed is my bottom line for the launch. And the devices themselves, they're not that much different. But if you're in the Apple, the iPhone ecosystem and all that, I'm sure you're super excited. But for me, I'm just kind of like yawning. So
that's an interesting take there. Mickey, what do you have to add here?
So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here and say that, you know what, not including the charger is not necessarily a bad move. Like, thinking, at first there's of course the knee-jerk reaction of, wow, that they're not including a vital part of the phone, but thinking about my phone usage, most of the time I'm using my wireless charger anyways. And so I think Apple's sort of helping consumers towards that by introducing MagSafe across all their devices. I think this is like something only Apple can do as well, because it's such a closed ecosystem. They occupy a very effective, or dedicated niche rather. And with the introduction of the MagSafe standard, people can just gravitate towards an even more seamless wireless charging experience. However, I will have to say that them including the USB-C to Lightning cable was a blunder, because I mean, if you had an old charging brick, you still can't use it with this new cable. So what was that point they were making about being eco-friendly? Because people who say don't have a modern Mac or something else with a USB-C charger isn't going to be able to use that cable at all.
Yeah, that's true. That some things that they pull off, is just strange. It's like why they just contradict themselves many times, and it just brings out the comedic effect out of the event. But it's Apple, so they can just
they
do
can get
whatever
away
they
with
wanna
it.
do. Yeah, exactly. They can get away with whatever they want to do.
They were bragging about how not including the charger made the box so much smaller and made shipping more efficient. But if they didn't include an extra layer in which they needed to place the cable, you can make the box even slimmer and even sexier. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's just
I think it would have been pretty cool. Like, I see it with. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but I know there's tech companies that, like, when you're buying a product, I think this is the case for laptops and PCs. Whenever you're buying them, you can buy peripherals as add-ons. That would be pretty smart to do with, like, say, a phone that doesn't come with a cable or a power adapter.
Right.
So then it's like an opt-in sort of situation.
Yeah, like maybe you have the price is set as $1,500 for the phone, and then if you don't want a charger, it takes $100 off the price or something like that, where it encourages people. I don't know, just thinking out loud. I do think that one day, maybe down the road, this would be a great discussion, because overall we are very wasteful, and like Mickey said, just the knee-jerk reaction is one thing, but then stepping away from it, if there is a way we can reduce a lot of waste, would be great. So maybe that's something we could discuss down the road in another podcast.
For sure. So I'll definitely note that down. Speaking of the Apple event, I think Apple have again pulled off a classic Apple move here, because while they were presenting the cameras, they were over promoting each and every element, like everything's just going to be revolutionary, everything's so new. But in reality, I think it's oddly similar to the iPhone 11's camera systems. And I haven't seen any camera samples yet, but looking at the presentation, I could feel that they're just trying to push over, already existing things in a manner so that they can seem new in a way and push consumers to get the new iPhones. But yeah, speaking of cameras, brings me to the popularly crowned smartphone camera king, Pixel. So Google held a launch event some time back, and they launched the Pixel 5 and the Pixel 4a 5G, which were very interesting devices because Google has made the decision to not go with the 800 series Snapdragon processors and go with the 700 series instead. So I'd love to know you guys' thoughts on that as well.
So I think Google has a very wacky but very smart approach of just making the best of what they can get. This is the case with, I think they have still a 2-camera array, if I'm not wrong. So they're making the most use of that, and like as you said with the Snapdragon, like just making the best out of that. So I think that software first approach may seem like a very weird decision for consumers, but it must make sense internally, as you can see with the reviews, with the Pixel, the iPhone 12 mini, the fan edition from Samsung, and like the 8T all butting heads. So it's a very, very interesting decision that Google's made to just take this like software first stance, and just still blow minds of people by not using something that's like high end at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't think we're going to be able to, experience the Pixel 5 ourselves, because the launch in India seems like, I don't think it's going to launch ever. And same was the case with the Pixel 4 and Pixel 4 XL. But I really wanted to use those, but I never got the chance. So Mickey or Randy, did you guys ever have a chance to experience any of the Pixels?
So I've played with the original Pixel when, I guess a little while after it launched, after it became very cheap. And you know what? I think this new Pixel 5 and Pixel 4a, they're going past that in history. They're going back to sort of like the Nexus feel, the Nexus 5X, where I'm not sure if it was a top-end phone at the time, but it certainly didn't feel that. And it wasn't a top-end price tag either. So I think it's more just consumer-centric, being friendly to the consumer's wallet, and a sort of understanding for that mainstream users. Phones have gotten fast enough. Nobody really needs an 865 in their normal phone. Of course, I'm sure the OnePlus forum users will argue the exact opposite, but I think we're we're always looking at this from an enthusiast point of view, whereas Pixels, I think they're more now targeted towards just your average Joe.
I thought it was a great choice, just going off what both of y'all just said, because by not choosing the 865, I read they saved considerable amount of money with licensing fees alone through Snapdragon, and I'm not sure exactly the dollar amount, but doing the whole software first, because I think most people, when they think of Pixel, they think of camera first and probably stock Android second. So what most people probably don't realize is the Pixel 5 and the 4a 5G have the exact same camera setup. You just have a plastic back on the less expensive one, the 4a 5G, and you have, I think, 2 gigabytes less of RAM. But the price is, I think it's around $300 difference in the price for that. So not bad. I was kind of happy to see the Pixel come in at a lower price, I guess, bottom line. Then it seemed like it had been creeping up a lot over the last couple of iterations.
You've all made great points, and I think I completely agree with you all here, and especially with what Mickey said, because I think most people don't need the power of the 865 on their phones, and it's going to fit perfectly, as you quoted, the average Joe and the average user. They're not going to mind the 700 series processors over the 800 series. So I think it was a bold decision, and I think it might turn out in their favor, and especially with the camera experience that Google is able to provide in their devices, I think most people are going to be very pleased with their phones. So yeah, I have one final question for you guys, and it might get controversial, but so you guys have a budget of about $800. So which phone are you getting? The OnePlus 8T, the Samsung S20 FE, or the Pixel 5 or the 4a? So what are your guys' takes on it? Suhant, you go first.
Can Mickey go first? I'm still thinking.
Okay. Honestly, I'm not so sure about the pricing regionally, but I'm going to propose a different option. I would like to go for the iPhone 12 mini.
Oh, what? Ooh, damn.
It's the first flagship phone that's in that tiny size that's been around like in a long time. And I think people that came from the original iPhone SE and even the second iPhone SE, they're going to be very happy with the return of small phones that aren't a step down from their bigger brothers. And I think personally, having used large phones for a long time, I've seen all the drawbacks, the ease of it slipping out of your pocket or sitting on it. I think having a small phone isn't necessarily a drawback in this day and age, especially with full screen displays.
Yeah, that's a good point. And my mind is so subconsciously biased towards Android phones that I just completely skipped that option totally. But I think, the 12 mini is, in my opinion, I think it's going to be one of the most selling iPhones that Apple has ever made, especially because of the size. Secondly, because of the nostalgia it brings regarding the 5S design. And I think, people are starting to lean towards smaller phones. And that might be a good, unique selling point for Apple. So, Randy, what do you have to say?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go off of what Mickey said before I give my real answer. I have a OnePlus Nord. I was picked to do one of the reviews, and the review passed the muster, and they let me keep it. And I kind of agree with Mickey on that. It is really nice to have a smaller phone. Even though I love the big phones, I use my phone for my work, and I like having a big screen that I can do lots of stuff with and all that. But I also really, really fell in love with the Nord, having a smaller screen. But all that said, if I had $800, I'm going to buy the 8T. No, I won't even think about it for 2 seconds, because, I was picked to be a brand ambassador, and, that didn't turn me into a OnePlus fan. They picked me because I am a OnePlus fan, and I just love OnePlus phones. And if I'm going to buy one of these phones, I'm definitely not going to buy an iPhone, even though they have great cameras, and I'm a camera guy. And I'm not going to buy the Pixel, although that's kind of tempting, maybe to get the 4a 5G, but because that has a great camera. But at the end of the day, I'm going to end up going with the OnePlus because they don't lag, and they have great specs. I love when I'm taking a picture with a OnePlus phone what I see on the screen when I go to take the picture, that's the picture I'm going to get. And so for, like maybe somebody else might prefer an iPhone where you just, you can close your eyes and take a great picture with it. I like to see what I'm going to get and kind of feel that picture and then take that picture. And so for me, the speed of the OnePlus phones, I'm going to go with the 8T hands down.
That's a good choice. I'm not going to lie. I think 8T is definitely a compelling phone, and it's obviously not going to disappoint any kind of user. Suhant, you want to add in now?
Yeah, sure. So Mickey's choice kind of got me thinking. But I like when Randy was speaking, I was just thinking about this, and so I would say that the iPhone is really compelling at its current price, but yeah, and it is there's a very low barrier to entry with the iPhones now at the price that the iPhone 12 mini is at right now. But I'm not going for the option that starts at 64 gigabytes, but which puts me over $800. So I'm going to go with the 8T as well.
Definitely. I think paying more than $800, especially for the mini or the 12, I don't think it's worth it. In my personal opinion, I think I'd definitely go for the OnePlus 80 or the S20 FE, because even that seems like a decent enough phone. I've seen some videos and some reviews of it, and the response is sort of positive. So I think, even I might be leaning towards the 80 or the S20 FE. Definitely want to try the Pixel someday, but 5 is definitely not launching here, so that's out of the question for me. So guys, those were the choices of phones that we all have made, and I think everyone's made some pretty good points about their decisions. Before wrapping up this episode, I think we should cover some timeless tech trends that have been going on, and I'd like to get your opinions on. First of all, Mickey, I'm gonna want to discuss this with you. What do you think about the fingerprint sensor moving from traditional physical sensors to the in-display sensors, and the Pixel lineup reintroducing the physical sensor on their phones with the Pixel 5 and Pixel 4a 5G? So what are your thoughts on that?
So if you had asked me this question, say 2-3 years ago when in-display fingerprint sensors were still new, I would have said rear-mounted or even like below-screen fingerprint sensors are the optimal solution. But nowadays, it's really difficult to notice a difference in speed, so ultimately it's down to preference. However, there is one thing I will say for rear-mounted fingerprint sensors was, especially on the OnePlus 5T, which I'd loved at the time, you can use the fingerprint sensor for navigation purposes, like swipe down to open your notifications. I think that was huge because the phone was so tall. And
yeah, that was a great feature.
Exactly. And now, I'm assuming with the Pixels, they have high-end enough sensors to do it as well. In terms of physical fingerprint sensor, though, of course, we can't forget the power button mounted, like side kind that the Xperia phones have been featuring for a while. I think that's also a very good solution. Ultimately, everything's become so high tech and so modern in speed that, it's just down to user preference.
Yeah, but the thing you mentioned about the 5T having, extra functionality with the fingerprint sensor, that was a really great feature to have. And I was almost using it all the time because most of the times I'm just using my phone to, check the notifications. So you just unlock the phone with your finger and you can just scroll down to check the notification. So that was a quick way to do that. And I really loved it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could even go a step further, which I was very proud of doing, and install an app that lets you do side swipes to bind to different functions. So you could not even have the nav bar on your phone, just like left swipe for back and right swipe for recents. That's something that could potentially be very exciting on Google's return to the rear-mounted fingerprint sensor.
Yeah, I never tried that, unfortunately, but that sounds really interesting as well. And I think, that would have been useful. So we'll see if, Google is able to implement all that in the Pixel 5 and the Pixel 4a 5G as well. Suhant, I'm going to come to you and ask, what are your views on the traditional versus in-display fingerprint sensors, and which one do you prefer in general?
So actually, when I became an active member of the community was at the 6T launch, which was the first commercially available in-display fingerprint reader at the time. So at that time, I was very skeptical. Like, it wasn't fast enough. There was a lot of false readings. Yeah. And now my mind is kind of changed on in-displays because now I have the 7 Pro. It's just very easy to use. It's fast enough. But what Mickey said about the 5T, and the 5T is still probably the OnePlus phone that still is in my heart, I would say. It's just because so many things about the device were perfect, and the fingerprint sensor was one of my favorite features because it was just blazing fast. Still faster than any in-display fingerprint sensor I've tried to date. So in the sense of speed, I think traditional fingerprint sensors still have the win there. But in terms of overall aesthetics and just seeming a bit more modern, I would say in-display fingerprints are the winner. There's a win in both areas, in both categories, but it really just depends on what you personally prefer. I'm not so sure about the side mounted, like on the power button,
right?
Like the fingerprint sensor on the power button, just because from a design perspective, I'm not sure, like people have their cases and stuff. So I'm not sure if a actual physical sensor on the side of the button would look that great. That's why I think we should just continue with in-display fingerprint readers or things like Face ID or stuff like that. So
definitely.
Let's see where tech progresses. I'm still very hopeful for in-display fingerprint sensors. I'm sure they're going to get faster.
Yeah. So speaking speed-wise, I think for me personally, it's not a very big issue because the 8 Pro unlocks seamlessly and the lag is almost not noticeable compared to a traditional fingerprint sensor, which was basically removed. And speaking of things removed, one thing that still annoys me to this date is the removal of the headphone jack from phones, because in India especially, I think people had not moved to a wireless environment. You know, I use a lot of wired devices, and I really hated when even OnePlus decided to take it off, because I thought they're just going to carry it for at least some more time. And I had the Note 9 before my 8 Pro, which had a headphone jack, and that was really useful for me because anytime I traveled anywhere, whether be it for work or for college or anything else, I think that time, even if I'd forgotten my earphones at home, I could just borrow someone's if I needed it, and it was a great feature / convenience to have. But now that's completely gone. And Randy, how's the situation with you? You know, do you miss the headphone jack, and like, would you rather just move to a completely wireless world?
Okay, so that's a really good question. This week, I think it was on Friday, I was going through some stuff and I found some OnePlus Type C, the Bullets earphones that are wired. Okay, and I found them. I won them like last year in like a scavenger hunt and on the forums. And so I went ahead, I opened them up and I started using them. And honestly, like I have Bullets too, and they sound great. And I thought they sound great, but I tried the wired ones and I like the sound on the wired ones better. It's fuller. It's hard to explain. Yeah. So like at first pass, you might think, well, okay, so then you need a headphone jack. But the reality is I listened to music and videos last night for like 3 hours on my OnePlus phone using these wired headphones. Just had them plugged in through the USB-C jack. And when my battery ran out, I plugged in my phone for a little while and I couldn't do both at the same time. So that was kind of that's a little bit annoying. But here's what I want to say. With the OnePlus 8T, with the 65 watt charging, so you're going to be able to charge the phone to 100% in like 30 minutes or something crazy like that. Like you don't really need the headphone jack and a separate charging port, because you can charge the phone so dang fast. And then when you're not charging it, you can use the wired headphones if you want to get that little bit of extra amazing sound.
So yeah, definitely convenience is going to be the key word here, because I think for many things, the wired earphones are definitely useful. Like when certain times I'm watching a movie while I'm having food, and at that time, I think it's better to have wireless earphones. But at times when I need the quality, I think I'm definitely going to prefer the wired earphones or the headphones, and having that convenience of, just plugging it in without having to, use a jack or any adapter of any sort. I think that was a must-have for me, but now pretty much I've gotten used to it by now. But yeah, it's something definitely that I miss a lot, and I'd want some sort of a middle ground on this, because audio quality, as you mentioned, is like even on those OnePlus Bullets wired that you used, you're saying that they were better than the wireless ones.
Yeah, it's weird because it's not like it's nuanced better, and it's hard to explain that. It's not anything like I was living a full life with the wireless, and they sound amazing. But I started listening to these, and I'm like, whoa, this sounds really good. So it's more full, I guess, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah. Mickey, would you want to add anything to this?
I'd have to say that both have their benefits. I think the convenience of wireless more than makes up for the additional quality from a wired connection. But I do agree with Randy, like wired, in my opinion, does sound better. And I think Google's done a great job in bringing back these user-friendly features in their new, I guess, mid-range flagship.
Yeah, that's definitely well said. And yeah, Suhant, what do you have to say about this? I'd love to know what's your opinion on this.
I still use my USB-C to 3.5 adapter, so there are times when I just need a wired headset or headphones, and yeah, so I don't think like right now we're at the time where quality has matched up in wireless headphones to wired headphones, so it's gonna take a bit of time. It will happen eventually, but right now we're just in this weird phase that like enthusiasts like ourselves may need both wired and wireless to live in tandem.
That's well put. Yeah, definitely I share this opinion with you guys that obviously the quality has not matched the quality of the wireless earphones or audio equipment has not yet matched the wired ones, and obviously the enthusiasts are definitely going to prefer the wired ones, but let's see how it all turns out. I think it's definitely going to get better with time. So Suhant, you recently reviewed the OnePlus Buds, and I'm curious to know, how was the sound quality compared to any wireless earphones that you use? Or as you mentioned, you use the Type-C to headphone jack adapter. So how was the difference? Like, was it major enough to keep you off them, or like, are they usable?
The Buds are still gonna be a secondary audio device for me. It's not gonna be something I use every day. It has like certain use cases where, like for example, if I don't want any wires on my neck or wires dangling about, then like for a workout, for example, it would be good. But if I'm editing like a video or something for marketing purposes, I would prefer having like a wired headset so I can hear everything properly. Yeah. So I'm still debating that if the Buds are worth it or not.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
And also it's OnePlus's first foray into the world of TWS, so kind of have to cut them some slack. I did expect more from them, but yeah.
So I think that was it for today, guys. We've had a lot of interesting discussions, and it was honestly a very fun session for me personally. Before ending the podcast episode, I'd like to take a moment and thank the community members for tuning in, and we'd love to know your suggestions and feedback on this episode. If you have anything specific to ask or say to any of the members that have joined today, please feel free to comment below. A big shout out and thank you to Mickey, Suhant and Randy for tuning in tonight with me. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did, because surely for me it was a delightful experience. That was it for today, guys. This is Yashovardhan Nagori, and if we have any developments, we'll keep you in the loop.